So President Donald Trump is pushing for a $1.5 trillion US military budget for fiscal year 2027. That's almost a 66% surge from the already massive $901 billion Congress approved in 2026. A $500 billion jump in military spending on top of an already bloated Pentagon budget. And the budget experts, even those close to this administration, are openly struggling to explain where all that money would go. Now, this is the backdrop for everything that follows: record-breaking spending, debt skyrocketing, corporate war, profiteering on full display. So let's break this down in human terms, factual terms, and political terms that actually matters. The $1.5 trillion budget, what it is and why it matters. So earlier this year, Trump declared on Truth Social that he wants a $1.5 trillion Pentagon budget for 2027, aiming to build what he calls a dream military. And according to Reuters, that target is roughly $600 billion more than what Congress approved last year, nearly a 50% jump. Budget analysts have been blown away by the scale. A $1.5 trillion budget would shatter historic precedent. The last time defense spending jumped by even 20 to 30% was during the Vietnam War era. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget estimates that even a modest $500 billion annual bump could add trillions to the US national debt over the next decade, at least $5.8 trillion after interest cost. Trump even claims tariffs will somehow pay for all of this, but analysts are skeptical. Current tariffs are estimated to bring in far less than what this plan would require. So Trump claims this $1.5 trillion dream military will be paid for by tariffs. But here's the reality: those tariffs are suspended after Supreme Court intervention, meaning the entire funding mechanism he keeps bragging about doesn't exist anymore. So once you strip away the slogan, we are left with one brutal question: where does the money actually going to come from? And there are only 4 real options, and every single one hurts regular Americans. Option 1 is massive new debt. This is the most likely path. Without tariff, the government would have to borrow hundreds of billions every single year to fund this surge. That means trillions added to the national debt, higher interest payments crowding out social spending, future tax hikes guaranteed, just delayed. This isn't hypothetical. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget estimates that a defense expansion on this scale would add $5 to $6 trillion to the debt over the next decade. So when politicians say we will figure it out later, what they really mean is your kids will pay for it. Option 2 is cut domestic programs even harder. If Trump doesn't want to borrow everything, the money has to come from somewhere else. That means deeper cuts to Medicaid and Medicare expansion, SNAP and food assistance, benefits frozen during shutdown, and states forced to ration aid. So the choice becomes clear: food assistance or fighter jets. Washington keeps choosing the jets. And option 2 is raise taxes, but not on the rich. So let's be honest about political reality. They are not raising taxes on billionaires or defense contractors. Those are the same donors benefiting from Pentagon spending. That leaves payroll taxes, consumption taxes, hidden fees, inflation acting as a stealth tax. So even if your income doesn't change, your buying power shrinks while military contractors cash in. Option 4, print more money equals to more inflation. The quiet option nobody says out loud: more deficit spending means more pressure on the Federal Reserve. And when money supply expands faster than productivity, you already know what happens. Groceries stay expensive, rent keeps climbing, savings lose value. Inflation becomes the tax you never voted for. Now the Pentagon audit failure, $1 trillion unknown. So let's talk about accountability of the lack of it. For years, auditors have tried to get a clear picture of Pentagon finances, and every time the Pentagon fails the audit, repeatedly for 8 straight years, they literally can't track trillions of dollars of assets, weapons, equipment, maintenance once gone, unaccounted for, or badly mismanaged. So here's the glaring question: Why bail out a system that can't even prove what it already has? And now we are talking about injecting 500 billion more dollars on top of that. So that's not just reckless, it's fiscally insane. And this is where things get personal. You don't need to look far to see how Pentagon dollar turn into private wealth. Big defense companies, the same ones pushing for higher spending, regularly post massive profits while everyday Americans struggle with inflation and decent healthcare access. Whether it's overpriced war contracts or questionable private military outsourcing, this pattern isn't new. This isn't just spending, it's a slush fund economics. Domestic spending cuts the double standard. Now here's where the hypocrisy really burns. Republicans, including Trump, often scream about fiscal discipline when it comes to social programs like Medicare expansion or even SNAP food assistance. Expanding Medicare to include dental, vision and hearing, roughly 350 to 400 billion dollar over a decade, gets labeled too expensive. But 1.5 trillion dollar for the Pentagon? Now that's suddenly not just affordable, it's essential. To millions of struggling families, that translates to higher food cost, unaffordable prescription, skyrocketing premiums, but somehow there's always money for weapons system and war contract. Foreign policy realities, war, blockades and chaos. So this isn't just about dollar. Some of the world's most consequential geopolitical decisions are funded out of this military budget. First, Cuba blockade. Recent reporting confirms that US naval presence around Cuba is acting very much like a blockade, restricting fuels, crippling basic infrastructure, and risking humanitarian crisis. Not since the Cuban Missile Crisis have we seen this level of pressure and strategic brinkmanship, yet it's happening right now. Second, Syria and Middle East chaos. The Pentagon activists in Syria have long been controversial. Recent inertia suggests tens of thousands of jihadist fighters, including ISIS affiliates, have returned to the battlefield amid shifting alliance and mass escape from detention camps. These aren't minor numbers. We are talking 15,000 to 20,000 combatants now on the move. And this isn't theory, it's the real world impact of modern US foreign policy. Third, Venezuela and global militarism. Under Trump, we have seen an offensive posture toward Venezuela, new deployment in Africa, and renewed tension with Iran. Drone strikes in multiple countries, policy confrontations in the Arctic, and economic coercion across Latin America, all funded by US taxpayers. This isn't defense, it's empire expansion backed by borrowed money. Political dynamics who stands to gain. So let's unpack the political reality. Trump wants this massive budget. Key defense committees chairs publicly support it. Traditional fiscal hawks within the White House actually oppose the budget because of debt concern. And this isn't a split between left and right. It's a divide within the establishment about how far to push government spending when basic oversight barely exists. So what this actually means for you? America is facing a choice. Do we keep sending hundreds of billions overseas toward weapons we can't audit and wars we struggle to justify? Or do we prioritize affordable healthcare, social programs and economic stability for working families? Because here's the truth most politicians won't say out loud. A government that can't account for its own money shouldn't be rewarded with more. A budget that deepens debt at historic levels during peacetime needs scrutiny, not applause. If this makes you question the priorities of a government, drop a comment. And this isn't just political noise, it's your money, it's your future and your nation's moral compass at stake. Stay safe, stay informed because democracy doesn't work unless you demand it. I'm Jack Cross and see you in the next breakdown.